Number 11, you were just unlucky. We reach the most disturbingly vague accusation of all just existing while unfortunate things happened around you. Your neighbor's goat died, someone's crop failed, a child got sick, the river flooded, the beer went bad, the stars looked weird. Somehow, all of it pointed back to you, the woman who once frowned at someone, or tripped in public, or had resting suspicious face. In truth, a lot of witchcraft accusations came down to bad timing, bad vibes, and other people needing a scapegoat. You were poor suspicious, you were not poor. Also suspicious, you stayed home too much witch, you went out too much social witch. There was no winning. You didn't need a black cat or a wart or a cauldron. You just needed to be there when something went sideways. Medieval society was all about cause and effect, and when the actual cause was unknown, they pointed to whoever made them uncomfortable. So, yeah, the number one reason you'd have been accused of witchcraft in the Middle Ages, being slightly inconvenient. Number 10, you laughed at the wrong time. Imagine you're at church and something tickles your brain, maybe the priest mispronounced deliverance as deliver a goose, or you suddenly remember that time your cousin fell into a well, you stifle a chuckle, bad idea. Now everyone's looking at you like you just cackled in Latin and summoned a demon. In the Middle Ages, laughter wasn't always seen as innocent, out of place giggling. That was a red flag, especially if you were a woman, and especially if someone nearby later had bad luck. Maybe a storm ruined their crops, or their cow got moody. Remember how Agnes laughed during prayer? She did this. Why? Because it was believed that witches couldn't help themselves. They were thought to betray themselves with strange behavior like smirking during a sermon or giggling when others cried. Basically, any expression of inappropriate emotion could be interpreted as unholy influence. It didn't help that joy and humor were considered frivolous or even sinful in certain religious circles. If you weren't properly somber, people thought you were mocking God, or worse, channeling Satan's stand-up routine. So yeah, next time you think your nervous laugh is just quirky, in 1450 it was your trial's opening argument. Number 9, you helped deliver a baby. So you're the local midwife. You've seen things. You've helped screaming villagers push out tiny harmed, slippery humans under candlelight with zero anesthesia and maybe a goat watching. You deserve a parade. But in the Middle Ages, you got suspicion and side-eye. Midwives were often respected until something went wrong. A baby didn't survive witch, a mother died in childbirth, definitely a witch. Too many babies survived, suspiciously good at your job, also probably a witch. Basically, midwives walked a razor-thin line between life-saving angel and demon doula. The problem was that childbirth was terrifying, and medical knowledge was, let's be generous medieval. When anything didn't go according to plan, and it often didn't, people needed someone to blame. And who better than the one person who touched the baby first? Also, the church didn't love that midwives operated without their blessing. Independent women with hands-on knowledge of the human body blasphemy, especially when they weren't shy about using herbs or old-world techniques. You used what witchcraft? Burn her. So yeah, helping bring life into the world might get your life taken away. 0 stars. Do not recommend. Number 8, you had a dream that came true. You ever wake up from a dream and later think, whoa, that actually happened. Congratulations. Your subconscious just booked you a front row seat at your own witch trial. In medieval Europe, dreams were seen as a direct line to the supernatural. Good dreams might be divine, but dreams that predicted anything suspicious, especially if something bad followed, like if you dreamed your neighbor's pig died, and then it did, hello, sorcery. People genuinely believed that prophetic dreams were either a sign of God or a demonic revelation. And if you were a woman, odds were, the court picked door number 2, satanic influence. It gets worse, even if you didn't tell anyone about the dream, but word got out after something happened, you could still be blamed. Apparently, dreams were admissible as evidence. She knew it would happen, therefore she made it happen. So yeah, your brain trying to process stress while you sleep in the Middle Ages, that could be considered premeditated magical intent. Sleep tight, dream criminal. Number 7, your neighbor's butter wouldn't churn. This one sounds fake, but I promise you this happened. You know how sometimes you try to do something and it just doesn't work for no logical reason. Your printer jams, your sourdough won't rise, your butter refuses to churn. Now imagine you're in 1543 and the solution to your kitchen fail is blame the woman next door. Butter churning was serious business in the Middle Ages, food was scarce and dairy was gold. So when butter wouldn't churn, people didn't think, maybe it's too cold. They thought, clearly, someone cursed me, probably Margaret with the weird eyebrows. Accusations of milk magic were common. Witches were thought to steal the spiritual essence of milk, making it impossible to turn into butter or cheese. Sometimes they were even accused of stealing cream through the walls using invisible spells, like lactose-loving ghosts. And if someone's butter mysteriously did work while others failed, even more suspicious. That's not skill, that's sorcery. So yeah, your kitchen success or failure wasn't just culinary, it was a legal liability. Next time your blender acts up, just be glad no one's accusing you of dairy-based devilry. Number 6, you knew how the weather worked. Picture this, you mentioned that the clouds look heavy and it might rain. A few hours later, it rains. Logical conclusion. You're a reasonable, observant human being. Middle Ages conclusion. Witchcraft. Back then, understanding weather patterns or even just predicting weather was seen as deeply unnatural. Most people thought weather was entirely God-controlled, so if you correctly guessed that a lightning storm was coming, you were clearly in league with dark forces. Farmers believed witches could curse crops by calling down frost or bring hail to destroy harvests, and if you were suspected of such a thing, good luck explaining how low-pressure systems work to a guy who thinks sneezes are caused by demons. Bonus danger being the village person who didn't suffer from the bad weather. If your fields were somehow untouched by the drought that ruined everyone else's, you clearly made a deal with Satan. So basically, being meteorologically literate was grounds for suspicion. If you carried a barometer, they'd accuse you of summoning clouds with a cursed stick. Welcome to medieval climate science, where weather reports came with torches and pitchforks. Number 5, you lived alone. In a cozy cottage on the edge of the village, with a garden full of herbs and maybe a chicken or two, you live a quiet life. Sounds idyllic, right? Well, congratulations, you're now officially the village witch. In the Middle Ages, being a woman who lived alone was enough to trigger the gossip network harder than a Facebook group full of moms who love drama. Because if you weren't married, didn't have kids, or weren't visibly under the protection of a man, people assumed something was off. And let's be real, women were expected to be either daughters, wives, or mothers. If you stepped out of that triangle, society got twitchy. Maybe you were widowed. Maybe you just didn't want to share a roof with a guy named Ulrich who never bathes. Too bad. People started whispering about what you really did in that cottage. Spoiler, the answer was probably minding your own business. But to the medieval imagination, you were obviously dancing naked under the moonlight, summoning storms, and cursing cows with your suspicious, unmarried energy. Solitude equals sorcery, apparently, so if you enjoyed peace and quiet in 1457, you were just one grumpy villager away from trial by fire. Number 4, you had opinions. Back in the Middle Ages, if you were a woman with thoughts and worse, if you shared them, you were dangerously close to being accused of witchcraft. Did you criticize a neighbor, raise your voice, argue with a man? Bam! Witch! Medieval society loved a docile woman. They had a very specific vibe in mind, obedient, quiet, preferably not too smart. If you were outspoken, assertive, or had the nerve to disagree with someone publicly, people got nervous, especially if bad luck followed shortly after sick cow, spoiled ale, a thunderstorm. Suddenly your sass wasn't just attitude, it was supernatural sabotage. It was the ultimate gaslighting system, behave exactly how we want, or we'll call you a witch and have you tortured until you confess. Doesn't matter if you're right, doesn't matter if your neighbor Gary just sucks. The second you show spine, you're hexing people with your words. So yeah, today you'd be a boss. Back then you'd be burned for the crime of having a valid point. Number 3, you had a birthmark. Got a mole, a freckle, a weirdly shaped patch of skin. That, my friend, was called a witch's mark, and it was the medieval version of having a criminal record tattooed on your skin. Witch hunters believed that demons would leave a mark on their chosen witches, like a signature or a supernatural loyalty stamp. These devil's marks were thought to be numb to pain, so accused witches were often poked with needles until they screamed or didn't. Imagine being stripped naked in front of a crowd so someone with zero medical training could jab you with a stick and yell "gotcha" when you didn't flinch. Science. The truth, birthmarks, moles, and skin tags are incredibly normal. Like almost everyone has them, but in the 1600s, your totally average mole could become proof that you were breastfeeding your demonic familiar. No, I'm not kidding. So basically, your body's harmless pigmentation quirks courtroom evidence, and your dermatologist probably burned at the stake. Number 2, you knew how herbs work. Imagine curing someone's headache with peppermint tea and then being arrested for witchcraft because you must have summoned dark forces to banish the demon migraine. That's right, knowing how plants worked could literally get you burned. In the Middle Ages, medicine was, let's call it vibes-based. People believed illness came from imbalances in your bodily humors or was a punishment from God. So when someone came along with practical knowledge, say, this root helps stomach aches or don't eat that mushroom, unless you want to see God's face, they were seen as suspicious, especially if they were a woman. Herbalists were often accused of being witches because they could heal people outside of the church's blessings. Never mind that what they were doing was actual science. The patriarchy was like, you saved a life, explain yourself, sorceress. So imagine spending years learning the difference between mugwort and hemlock, only to end up on trial because Chad's cousin got better too fast and someone panicked. Basically, in the 1300s, being a well-informed herbalist was like being a walking red flag made of rosemary. Number 1, you talk to your cat. You know that cozy moment when you have a full-blown conversation with your cat about your life choices. Well, congratulations, back in the Middle Ages, that would have earned you a one-way ticket to a witch trial. In medieval Europe, having a pet, especially a cat, especially a black one, was basically like waving a neon sign that said, "Hi, I'm besties with Satan." People genuinely believed witches had familiars, animal companions that helped them do magic, cast curses, or just chill and be evil. So if your tabby happened to follow you around or purr at the wrong moment, people would start whispering. And if that cat had the audacity to show up when someone nearby stubbed a toe or got food poisoning, boom, you, the cat lady, are suddenly summoning demons through a calico sidekick. It didn't help that cats are nocturnal, do zoomies at 3 a.m. and stare at invisible corners of your room like they're watching ghosts do a dance-off. That's spooky now, imagine explaining that in 1583. So yeah, medieval logic went something like this: animal companion, palm, demon assistant, which makes modern pet owners basically Hogwarts professors. Your cat just wants treats, but 700 years ago, it was evidence. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.